Right. Good morning. Good morning, family. Good morning, friends. What a wonderful morning it is. I'm looking out the window. At least it is here in Atlanta. It's cold, but it's clear and the sun is out. I don't know what it's doing where you are, but it's still a good day. It's still a good Sunday, isn't it? Good morning to everybody. Come on in. Come on in to the space. We welcome you. We welcome everybody here this morning. Come on in wherever you are, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're joining from YouTube, whether this is your first time, come on in. Waiting to see who, always like to see who chimes in first and says, good morning. I'm betting it's going to be either Audra, maybe Armithia. I don't know. But good morning to all. Good morning to all. God bless you. It is December 18th. We are in the season. We are in the space. And we're going to have a good time today. So come on in. Come on in and join. All right. I know some of you on YouTube. Erica's on YouTube. Look, Erica's the first one. As she should. She's right here. As she should be. Erica, look. Look at good morning, Audra. That's my sister. I love you too. Good morning, all. Come on in the space. Hey, Danny. Hey, Danny. Good to see you. I love Danny, man. Danny. We love you too. Come on in the space. It's open. All are welcome into this space. All are welcome into this space, regardless of your denomination, regardless of your religion, regardless of wherever you are. Good morning, Diane. I think I just missed somebody to saying good morning to right before Diane. I hate to miss that. Grand rising to you, Rhonda. Yes, grand rising to you, Facebook user, whoever that is. We love you too and welcome you to the space. Thank you all for being here. This morning, this is TLC Sunday service. And we're going to continue with our theme that is consistent with the season of spiritual birth. And so let me know, are you ready for some birthing? Are you ready for some rebirthing? Not only in this season, but in all seasons. Because in actuality, rebirthing and birthing doesn't stop. Spiritual birthing never stops. It is a constant process. I've learned that and I embrace that. I surrender to that. And I hope you do too. So come on in this morning. Let's do some more birthing. Let's do some more rebirthing together. Right, we do this thing together. So good to see you this morning. One more time, good morning to all who are coming into the space. I know some will be coming in a little bit late, but we love you and welcome you too. Blessings to you, Fran, my angel friend. That is my friend that I laugh with all the time. Armithia, there she is. Just called your name out a minute ago. Good morning to you. And good morning to all. Grand rising to all. So I want to say good morning to Rev, wherever she is. She could be in Detroit. She could be in Jersey. You know, Rev can be anywhere all over in the world. You know, Rev is there, and wherever she is, we know God is with her. So I want to thank her and bless her wherever she is. Thank you, Rev. We love you. We honor you. We appreciate you. And so grateful to you. Happy birthday to all my Sagittarius brothers and sisters. Give us a shout out in the chat if you are a Sagittarius. You know, those birthdays are in November and December. And so I always want to say happy birthday. Special happy birthday to Sandy Pack. If she's on here, Sandy Pack's birthday is December 16th. We've been doing that for a long time, the same day as my dad's birthday, who's a Sag as well. So a special happy birthday shout out to her and all my other Sagittarius brothers and sisters. This is the season of rebirthing. You know, this is the season of birthing something new, and we talk about that. We've been talking about that at TOC for a minute. I don't want to go too much further without holding space for those who might be experiencing loss and grief this year, and last year or this year, or because this season can be tough. This season can be tough for people. There are those who feel isolated. There are those who feel depressed. There are those who while they talk about and we talk about a joyous season, that there are some people who aren't feeling that joy because of loss and grief right now. So we want to hold space for them right now. We think about those who transitioned, natural transitions. It doesn't matter how they transition. We hold a space for them. I hold a special space for, uh, with we've seen the latest suicide lately, and I can't even imagine what Twitch's family is going through right now, and all other families. And so, particularly during this season, I have some other friends um, who passed away within the last 2 weeks. I had two friends that I know, two or three friends that I know pass, and some other people. And so that's always happening. The cycle of life and death is always here, part of the experience, right? But during this season, we need to hold a special space for those people. So let's do that. And as we get ready to come into this space and prepare for this message, let's join our spirits together now. And I'm going to say a prayer. Um, and I'm going to ask that you either just, settle yourself down, open yourself up, get into your space, close your eyes if you like, just center yourself. I'm gonna read the prayer. Spirit just gave it to me this morning. But whether your eyes are open or closed, every affirmation is a prayer, and every word that comes out of your mouth is a prayer. Whether your eyes are open or closed, so do what's comfortable for you right now, and let's join together on this space in one accord. Okay, let's do that. Our Creator and Most High God, we thank you for life itself. We thank you for life itself. We thank you for the air that we're breathing right now, knowing that it's the universal breath of God. We give thanks for everything and every experience that has conspired to bring us to this now moment. Every experience, everything that's ever happened that conspired to bring us to this now. You've blessed every experience along our journey. Not only have you blessed it, you called it good, and you used it for your purposes. And now we want to hold space for all those souls, once again, that have transitioned, all the ancestors in the spirit realm, all those who are not with us physically anymore, to bless and comfort their families and loved ones during this season. Remind us that in this cycle that we call life, that your plan often surpasses our understanding. You can use anything and anyone, even those in the spirit realm, for your higher purposes. So while we still have life on this planet that we call Earth, use us as you will. Use us as you will. We are open, we are willing, we are surrendered. Amen. Amen. I say, and so it is. Now I ask that the words of my mouth and its heart be acceptable in the presence of God. Amen. December, family, is the month of life. The color is red. There's something about that red that always gives you some energy. And this is about the closest thing I could find to red, fam. So I got this on today. But it's about life. December is about life. The life is in the spiritual sense, right? It's about the ability to energize and to animate. And so I want you to feel this affirmation with me, and just embrace it as I read it. That I'm aware that I am life itself, and that the living spirit lives as me. I'm a healer and a restorer. I consciously choose spiritual growth and evolution, and I joyfully energize and enliven all that is in service to my greatest good. I'll read that last sentence again. I consciously choose spiritual growth and evolution, and joyfully energize and enliven all that is in service to my greater good. So it is, fam. So it is. That's what this season is all about. And so, listen, we have we have some announcements. Everything we do at TLC is about that. It's designed to bring you a life of more abundance, more of peace and prosperity. And so, our first announcement. Let's be reminded to register for Rev's YouTube channel, subscribe for it. And a subscription to her channel is a subscription to truth. It is a subscription to TLC, this message that we give out. And so listen, go and subscribe right now. We've got some people right now that are coming in through YouTube, watching through YouTube, and we just need certainly as many as we can to subscribe. So go to her channel, Shahira Stevens, and make sure you subscribe for her channel. All right, and we've got some other things coming up. Of course, we've got Soap Mondays on Mondays with Reverend Danny Stillwell. I call her Reverend Danny Stillwell. Well, that's where we meet God in music and prose. It's a wonderful way to start off the week. It's a wonderful way to start, period. Just immersed in God, immersed in music. We know music is so powerful, prose is powerful. And we're so grateful for Danny for always leading us into that space. And so you see the information there. You can always find that on our website. It's every Monday at noon. All right, every Monday at noon. So join us for that midday journey into spirit. All right. And then we have coming up on December 27th, Spiritual Insights 2023. If you've been at TLC for a while and you've been around, you've been a friend of TLC, you know that every year we come on, Rev comes on and leads us in some spiritual insights. It is quite powerful. I remember last year, I remember the last few years, and it's really good preparation as we go into the new year. So that's going to be on December 27th at 7 p.m. Remember, you must register on the TLC website for this. All right. You must register for this event on the TL website. The tuition is $20.23. 2023. 2023. Find all that information again on the website. Again, make sure you register there, December 27th. Mark that off on your calendars. Fam. All right. Then we have the Burning Bowl service coming up on December 31st. We know that at the end of the year it is time to leave the past behind. It is time to leave 2022 behind. The things of 2022, while we can take what we need from those experiences, it's some things that we need to leave behind and burn. And so we're going to have a burning bowl service on December 31st. We do that every New Year's Eve. That's at 12 noon. Now, this particular event is going to be just like you come on for Facebook Live for the Sunday services. All right. So Facebook Live, YouTube, join us at noon on December 31st. And let's let it burn. Let's let some stuff burn so we can bring in the new year. You got to make room, right? You got to make room for what's new. So join us on New Year's Eve for that at 12 noon. All right. Then Transforming Love Communities, first 12 days. You're talking about burning things up. Right. So we have to enter the year the right way as well. So the first 12 days of 2023, we're going to be staying in the presence of God from 7 to 7:15 p.m. every day from January 1st through January 12th. That's staying in the presence of God, prayer and meditation and those things. And we need to, start the year off staying in the presence. All right. Because that will begin our habit of doing that. So we're going to pray for those first 12 days. Again, you see all the information there. Go to the website, mark this off in your calendars, January 1st through January 12th, 7 to 7:15. All right, we'll see you there. We will see you there, fam. And then, hey, listen, I told you we've got so many things that are designed to bring in new life. The 21-day consciousness cleanse. 21-day consciousness cleanse. And, Eric and I were just talking about cleanse. We're talking about it from a physical standpoint, but, the physical and the spiritual is connected. You have to clean out what's inside, and then the benefits of that will manifest on the outside. So we have the 21-day consciousness cleanse. We're using Debbie Ford's program for that. As you can see, that's going to kick off on January 13th. And we're going to check in with each other on Zoom on the 20th and 27th, right? See how it's going. do some periodic check-ins, and we're going to wrap that up on February 6, 2023 at 8 p.m. All this is on Zoom. You see the information there. Again, check the website. But join us for that. Enter the new year being cleansed. And so the rest will follow. The rest of the year will follow the way you start, right? The way we start. And so we look forward to seeing you there. All right. Then we have the rest of December. So we know we had Reverend Shahira. We talking about this birthing your spiritual self, right? Reverend Shahira. We had Reverend Shahira talk about conceiving and conception. We had Danny Stillwell talking about pre-birth and taking care of yourself. Today I will talk a little bit about labor and a little bit about birth. And next week, our good Reverend Royce will talk about aftercare. He will talk about birthing your spiritual self, and he'll talk about the process of aftercare, a little bit of birth and a little bit of aftercare as well. So we're looking forward to seeing him next week. We know how powerful he is. That's my brother, and I love him, man. That's a great picture too, Royce, by the way. I tell you that, man. You look mighty dapper on that picture. All right. Thank you. So let's get into the message. I want to review just for a minute that we are focusing on spiritual birth, and as I just said, that Rab talked about conception, what you can believe you can conceive, and she talked about Mary. She talked about the conception and how that played out. Danny came and talked about pre-birth. Pre-birth is what's necessary as you prepare your mind, your body, and your soul for the blessings that's being born in you. You know, she talked about protecting and caring for the gift, right? The boundaries that you have to set to do that. Man, that was powerful last week. So she talked about the pre-birth, all those things to prepare. Today I'll speak on labor, and I'll talk a little bit about its pain, the pain of labor, and also the purpose of labor as well. And as we said, next week on Christmas Day, the good Reverend Royce will come here and talk about aftercare. And so today I want to speak about, or at least speak from the subject that your labor is never in vain. Your labor is never in vain. And my prayer, fam, is that whatever you came for this morning, whatever you're seeking, I hope you get exactly what you came for. Collectively and individually, whatever is said through this message, as I open myself up, that you get exactly what you came for, and there's a purpose for you being here this morning. Fam, I want to start out by being transparent. You know, we're talking about labor in this whole birthing process, and Erica can tell you this: every time I prepare for a message, I feel like I'm in labor. I'm going through this process. It feels like that. You know what I mean? Erica probably say, "What you know about labor?" You know, but I mean, I'm talking about spiritual labor. I'm talking about labor, and it feels like I'm laboring right up into that moment where I see the red light go off on the screen that says you're live right now. I'm laboring, with this message. And sometimes Eric can see me when I'm preparing, and I'm like, got my head in my hand, and because I'm serious about what God is bringing through me. And so I'm surrendering at the same time, and God is bringing this. I'm getting messages. I'm saying, and then I go through a process of, man, I'm excited about the message. And then there's a point where I look at it and I say, man, what am I talking about, man? What are you talking about? Take that off. And, it's all this is going through. And I think that's part of the birthing process, right? And so when we think of birthing, we tend to think of the physical aspect. That comes to mind first, of course, the physical aspect. And while every one of us, man and woman and child, can experience spiritual birth, it is... I have a special reverence for women, feminine energy, of course, but for women, because they are, innately familiar with this process of creation. Because civilization came out of the womb of a woman. There's something about a woman that knows about birthing, whether it's birthing ideas, birthing consciousness, birthing children, the birth that women are. There's something about women, they are, for me, to me, the creators of civilization. And I'll tell you the truth, fam, when we're talking about physical birth, I don't even know if a man can endure that process of physical birth. I really don't. Yeah, I really don't. I know some of you saying he can't. I know someone's typing right in the chat right now. He can't. He can't endure it. He can't. So I know, but I have a special reverence for women. And so, but I think as we talk about spiritual birth for everybody, that certainly men will tap into the feminine energy of creation. So that's what it's about. What we're feeling is the feminine energy that's birthing, that's always been here, but it's rebirthing and it's coming to the forefront of everyone's consciousness. This has always been here, right? It's always been here. Um, and so, before I really get deep into the message, I also listen. I want to hold space and be sensitive to the fact that there are people here, there are people listening on Facebook and YouTube who will hear this message. And, and I know that there are people who desire to see the physical manifestation of the birthing process. There are those who desire to see a physical manifestation of the birthing process. I know that is truth. And I know for one reason or another, there are people here who did not, who could not, and cannot for whatever reason. I just know that, and I want to be sensitive to that as we speak about birthing, because we do think about that physical process, and I think we have to be sensitive to it. Because fam, there are people who can be sometimes they can be knowingly and unknowingly insensitive, knowingly and unknowingly insensitive, and I think we all have to be sensitive to that. That everyone has different experiences. That when we're talking to somebody, maybe we're talking to somebody about birthing, maybe you're talking to somebody about children, maybe you're talking to somebody about labor, maybe you're talking to someone about marriage or something else, and you hear people say, "Oh, you don't have children, you wouldn't understand," or "You're not married, you wouldn't understand," or "You wouldn't," we have to be sensitive to what that does um, to people, and so we always should be aware of that and hold that space for people. And I'll tell you, fam, I was in what really brought that to the forefront to me. I was in a workshop, a training actually about almost 2 weeks ago, maybe about a week ago actually, and it was a training workshop that was talking about violence prevention and intervening and trauma informed training for men and for people who've been violent at some point. And we began talking about the roots of violence, where that stands. And so the workshop was almost over, was on the last day. And so one of the last parts of the workshop wanted to talk about children and wanted to talk about what we want for our children and the kind of the disconnect between what we want for our children and how we discipline them, right? What we want for them and how we discipline them and what that can create, what physical discipline can create, and how that child can grow up from the experience of physical discipline that's kind of disconnected from what we originally want for children. And they began to talk about how many of you, and it was about 20, 25 people on the Zoom, and how many of you have children? They asked the question. Mostly all the hands went up. Well, I have children. Then, giving birth. And most were only about two men anyway on the call. And so I didn't raise my hand. I sat back and they began talking about that. And the trainer, who was who I know personally, is like, "Spence, you don't have any children?" And I just said no. I just shook my head no, and I smiled, and they kept doing what they were doing, and they began talking about really immersing themselves in the experience of having children. And can you remember when your baby was first born and you saw his fingers and his toes? And can you remember the love that you had? Can you remember what you wanted for that child? And everybody went around opening their mics saying, this is what I wanted for my baby. Oh, I saw the finger. And I just was sitting back and listening, and it was all I could do to just fam, was all I can do to just sit back. And I didn't want to I didn't want to tell them my experience because I didn't want to impede on the experiences that they were talking about with their own children, with their own babies. I didn't want to bring that energy down. But I certainly felt it. I certainly felt it. And later on, my friend who was a trainer texted me. He said, "Man, you okay? I felt your energy change." And we didn't even talk about it. Um, But the point I'm saying, friends, is that we always have to be sensitive. Now, while we're talking about spiritual labor today, is for everybody, but we know that there's a connection with the physical labor as well, with the physical birthing as well. So remember that, fam, that when you're talking to someone, when you're sharing experiences with someone, that you are sensitive to that. So I want to hold space for my sisters and people who've had that experience. And what I want to do, I want to remind you of a story found in chapter 8 of First Kings, and I talked about this before, but I want to say this as some inspiration right now. You know, there was the David who wanted to build this great temple for God, and as the story goes, I'll just read part of the scripture, and it says, "And it was in the heart of David, my father. It was in the heart of David, my father, to build a house for the name of the Lord God of Israel." And David couldn't build this temple, right, fam? But the scripture saying it was in the heart of him to build that house for the temple. Now, he didn't get a chance to do it, but the Lord said unto David, my father, and this is probably Solomon talking, who actually built the temple, said, "Whereas it was in thine heart to build a house unto thy name, thou didst well that it was within thy heart." That it was in your heart, that you did well because it was in your heart. It was in your intention. You wanted to do it. You tried to do it. It was in your heart. But I want you to know, David, I want you to know that you are blessed. You are just as blessed. And MLK reminds us in one of his sermons that it's just like God saying, whether the physical thing was built or not, whether the physical thing came or not, that you are still blessed. And in my eyes, that you are no less blessed. Why? Because it was in your heart. It was in your intention. And it is well because it was in your heart. It is well because it was in your heart. I want to bring up a quote I came across and talking about talking a little bit about birth and um, and it says all forms of birth, physical, intellectual, spiritual, or emotional, bring one to the depths. All forms of birth, man. The power to give birth originates in the creative life spirit that births all, the seen and the unseen. All forms of birth, physical, intellectual, spiritual, or emotional, that it resides in the creative life spirit, birthing all, the seen and the unseen. So, you know, for those of you who know me and Erica intimately and who know of our experience intimately, I will tell you that 10 years ago, while our son Christian was considered stillborn in the physical, we know, and we're still knowing, that what was meant for us and for him in the spiritual realm was not only born, but is still being born. And for us, that truth of understanding, fam, becomes a saving grace for us. You hear me? That the spiritual purpose is still born. It is still born for us and for him. So we're talking about the spiritual, family. So I want us to feel that as we go further into this message. We're talking about the spiritual, but we're using the physical as an example. All right. So Sam, one of the first scriptures I want to start this message off with is found in Mark, um, uh, the 13th chapter. You can find it in Matthew too, but Mark 13, 7 through the 21st, fourth verse. And and is that message? I can't see if it's up on the screen. Good, good. And when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There'll be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. These are but the beginning of birth pains. These are but the beginnings of birth pains. Now, fam, this can be interpreted universally, it can be interpreted globally, it can be interpreted nationally and personally, because, I think physically that what happens inside the womb and inside of a woman is just it is almost like a chaos that's going on. The cells are coming together, the body is changing, all that is going on inside the body of a woman, just like it is, just like it was in the Big Bang, right? So we look at the universe, right, and we compare that to what's going on in the body. The creation of the universe, they say, was the crashing and the chaos of the universe, and the crashing of cells, and the crashing of chemicals, and the crashing of gases coming together to create what it was. And there was chaos, but something came out of it. But it had to be that chaos. It was that labor pains that came. And I think that's what happens inside the womb and inside a woman. All that chaos is happening, but creation is happening at the same time. And of course, we know this is happening in our country as well. Kingdom against kingdom, ideology against ideology, all those things that we're experiencing birthing pains right now, but we know something is on the way. Oh, we know something is on the way, but we're experiencing the labor pains right now. We're experiencing the groaning right now, right? But we know something is on the way. So it's all that chaos, all those things that crash together, right? Seemingly crashing together, that they are part of creation. Like when you talk about the sperm and the egg, a few some years back, scientists captured the images of the flash of light that sparks when the sperm cell makes contact with the egg. That there's a flash of light that happens. You know what I mean? Scientists discovered that, man. That's amazing when you think about those two things crashing together to create life, coming together for a purpose. So those are the stages. When you talk about that conception, those are the stages. Those are the stages. So let's talk about labor a bit, fam, because I want us to consider that the labor pains we experience physically or spiritually, labor pains we experience are not just about what you're giving birth to. It's not just about what you're giving birth to. That in a spiritual sense, you come to discover that what you're birthing is actually rebirthing you. Let me say that again, fam. What you're birthing is also rebirthing you. It's also doing something to you, not just physically. It's rebirthing you. And so I believe, fam. I just believe, and I'm not a woman. I haven't experienced giving physical birth or even being a part of that process. But I do believe this, that there are stages of labor that start long before you get to the hospital. There's laboring that starts long before you get to the hospital. As Danny told us last week, you gotta do some preparation. And that preparation stage and labor stage is closely connected and closely related. Because in that preparation stage, many uncomfortable things are happening, right? Many uncomfortable things are happening in the physical sense. You have to watch what you eat. You got to watch what you drink. You got to, all that. In the spiritual sense, you got to watch, or you watch what you let go into your head. All those things are part of your preparation, but it's also a labor because, you're really starting to understand, that is not about you anymore. And sometimes that can be a labor when you discover that it's not about you anymore, when you start to understand the real meaning of selflessness. I believe anybody who's preparing for birth or preparing to birth a baby or idea or church, whatever that is, that you begin to understand the meaning of selflessness. I can't even put my finger on the depths of love that a woman is being ushered into as she prepares to give birth, as she even gets pregnant, ushered into unknown depths of love. But there's nothing more greater than the mother's love for a child. I believe that these are part of the labor labor process, laboring process, fam. All those things. So you're actually being rebirthed as well as giving birth to something new. And in the spiritual sense, fam, the labor is really about your old self is warring against the impending birth of the new self. That's what's happening spiritually. Your old self is warring against the impending birth of the new self. So inside this all this chaos, all this conflict because you're reaching a new spiritual level in your life. We talk about this all the time. The ego wants to hold on. You know, your old self is battling against your new self, man. That is laboring, and you know you have to just learn to surrender to it and be one with it and be one with it because you know now I believe in the birthing process, physical birthing process, and when the techniques came out about Lamaze or breathing techniques are really trying to encourage people, encourage women to be one with their body, to respond to what their body needs, to breathe with this thing as it's going on inside of you, and hopefully maybe the pains can be relieved a little bit if you breathe into it. But it is the old self and the new self that is fighting, and you can't resist it, man. Right? You can't resist what's trying to be birthed in you because the more you resist, it could be possible that your groanings and your labor increase in intensity because you're trying to resist. And we know labor by itself, labor by itself is intense on its own, but trying to resist it can increase the intensity. So whatever's coming in on your life, you have to surrender. You can't resist it. You don't want to prolong your groanings and labor by trying to resist it. When I think about the old self and new self, I want you to consider for a minute, fam, the story of Jacob, if you will, the story of Jacob. And I'll give you a little background and we'll talk about this. I want to set up that background. So we know that the story of Jacob and Esau, right? We know that Jacob was considered to be a ruthless man, a deceiver, con artist, manipulator. He stole his brother's birthright. Now Esau, his brother, planned to kill him. So eventually Jacob had to flee and he became estranged from his family from years. But you know, at a certain point, just about when he's probably 100 years old, God instructed Jacob to go back home. Go back home. And he was so scared because he knew his brother was gonna kill him after him, so he thought, and he was just so scared to take accountability, fam, to take accountability for that thing and who he was and who he had been. And so he tried to bribe his brother with gifts. He tried to do all this. He tried to split his wealth and his family in two parts, and so he could, one could escape. And he just was still trying to scheme, right? And so he sent everyone ahead of him, as he was going back to meet his brother. He sent everyone ahead of him and he kind of stayed behind. And when he sent everyone ahead and he stayed behind, he was left alone. And he was left alone, right, before he was going to meet his brother. And this is when he was scared. He really prayed for God's favor. And Janice, if you could bring this up, because I want to revisit the story at this chapter, at the 24th chapter, when it says Jacob was alone. And it starts with, Jacob was alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, Jacob. He said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Then Jacob asked him and said, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him right there. Now, here's the funny thing, and scholars will tell you about the story. You really don't know who's talking. When it says he did this and he did this, you're like, hey, was that Jacob or was that the man he wrestled with? No. But the point is he wrestled with somebody. Now, at the beginning of this scripture, it says he was alone. So who did Jacob wrestle with? He was wrestling with himself, man. He was wrestling with himself. The old self, the new self was trying to come in. God was trying to give him a new self, but he was wrestling. He had to wrestle that thing. He had to wrestle with that because he was still trying to hold on to the old self. He was still scheming. He was still doing all those things. And so our labor sometimes comes in wrestling with ourselves and resisting and not doing that. He was actually wrestling with himself. Fam, let me tell you, years ago, almost 20 years ago, I had a friend of mine. When I lived in Detroit on Harlow Street, over by South End, 6 Mile. And I lived by myself. And every now and then, someone would come and stay with me for a while. And maybe they might be going through a transition. And I had a friend of mine come stay and let him stay with me. And he was really going through a transition. I mean, he was going through something. He was going through a transition. And so I let him come and stay with me. And upstairs, I had 2 bedrooms upstairs. And so I stayed in one bedroom, and his bedroom was right next to me. And I didn't even have a bed in there yet. I just had like an air mattress in there, but he was just happy to be there and he was going through it. And so I remember sleeping, fam, and I was hearing noise. This is a true story. I was hearing some noise. He was just having a restless sleep. He just wasn't sleeping, when tossing and turning. Could have been that air mattress he was on, whatever. He was tossing and turning. And so I remember getting up in the morning, and I walked out my room, and he was walking out his room, and I took a double take and looked at him. And fam, he had scratches on his arm, some scratches and stuff like that. And man, what the hell happened to you, man? What was you doing last night in the room? What was going on? And we laughed and everything. And so it began to hit me. I said, man, you was in there wrestling with God. You was in that room wrestling with God. And we laughed and talked about it. But we talk about we laugh about it even years later, because that's exactly what was happening, because the transition he was going through at that time, fam, some newness was trying to come into his life. But something had a hold on to him. The old self had a hold on to him. The demons had a hold on to him. The addictions had a hold on to him. But he came and slept in the room, and he had a restless night. And when he got up, I'm telling you, it was like he was wrestling with God. But family, I'm going to tell you, from that point on, he didn't change overnight. Beginning of his journey to change into who he was going to be and who he is now. He was wrestling with God, and he was laboring all night, fam. He was laboring all night. We will never forget that. We will never forget that. And I am blessed to have been part of that experience, to provide the house or the room and the space in which he could do that. But he wrestled with God because, fam, they say as above, so below. What happens in the spiritual plane also happens in the physical. And so, it was those scratches and all those things because God wanted to expand his consciousness. God wanted to expand his life, but that took some labor pains, right? It's like someone going to detox. That's a labor, that's a pain, because God is trying to bring in something new, but the old still has a hold on to you. And it's just like a woman who is impregnated with a baby. As your body expands, so is your mind. Your mind is expanding. Your soul is expanding. Your awareness is expanding. So it's not just physical, it is spiritual as well. And so try as you might, fam, you cannot avoid the labor pains of spiritual growth. You cannot avoid the pains of discovering the deeper depths of love. You cannot avoid it. So what can you do, fam? You might as well just breathe right through it to find some type of relief. You might as well just breathe the breath of God and keep breathing and count on that to relieve some of your pain. You know, just keep breathing and flowing. You know, some would say this whole thing of breathing, that respiratory issues sometimes are phenomenon of resisting. Don't resist. You got to keep breathing because sometimes your airwaves can be constricted if you're not breathing and flowing with the experiences of life. You got to breathe with it, fam. Breathe through the pain and become one with the needs of your body, become one with the needs of the spirit, become one with what God is trying to do for you. Breathe with it. Then sooner or later, what has been hidden is now going to be revealed, and you discover that your labor is not in vain, that your labor has never been in vain, that joy is on the other side of that labor. Oh, you ask many mothers who have given birth, they will say joy is on the other side of that labor. Some would even say it was all worth it to find the joy that's on the other side of that labor. And that's what happens to us spiritually as well. But spiritually, fam, I don't think the labor pains really stop there, right? The labor pains, because we're talking about the spiritual, not just the physical. You know, when I think of the cutting of the umbilical cord, or where that child has got a sustenance from the mother for so long, then the cutting of that cord is almost like a process of detachment. You know what I mean? It's almost like a process of detachment, that what was once protected in the womb is now exposed to the world. And I can imagine, if I'm a mother, that is scary. That is a scary thing, to bring a new life into this world now, who's exposed to the elements now, who's exposed to life, who's exposed to this world that you live in. That can be a scary thing, but there begins a process of detachment as well. That yes, there's protection, there's sustenance that we give to that child, to that dream, to whatever, but it's also a scary time, because that baby is now that gift is now exposed to the world, and now external things start to be imposed on that child. You know, and I just believe, and I know my mother. You know, and there are some who say, "Man, if I could only live your life for you." I believe there might be some that says, "I just don't want to bring a child into this world." I've heard people say that before. But if you have done that, I'm sure there is a point where you want to live for your child. You want to have those experiences for your child. If you've been through those experiences, you don't want that child to suffer. You don't want that child. It's hard to see your child in pain. And I think about that song that my mother wanted to be played at her funeral, "If I Could" by Regina Bell. And many of you know the story. It wasn't played at the church. We won't go into that story, but she wanted it played for her sons. If I could, mean if I could shield you from the pain, I would do it. If I could shield you from the hurt, I would do it. If I could live this for you and take on that disappointment for you, I would do it. But I can't do it. That's what the song is about. I can't live for you. And I imagine, family, I imagine that is a labor pain as well. That is some pain, watching children, especially your children, in pain or suffering. I mean, think of the story. Think of the story of what do you call it, Mary and Yeshua, what do you call it, Hebrew and Cyrus and Isis. All those stories. All those stories. Can you imagine the pain of the mother who knows that her son came to sacrifice himself, who knows that her son came to die? Can you imagine the labor? Can you imagine that? So the pains don't stop there. But God reminds us, man, as He's reminding us right now, that your child comes through you, but not from you. Your child comes through you, but not from you. That your child, your dream, your idea comes from the universe. That in actuality, you are just a steward of God's gift. You are just a steward of that child. Your divine idea might come through you, but it's not from you. Your new self is not for you to live unto yourself, but it's to live for something greater than yourself. And for many who live in this civilization, that's a difficult concept to embrace because we're surrounded by society that glorifies individualism. We're surrounded by society that glorifies the self-made man, that we just do this for ourselves and not everybody else. But the new self, the new birth is not for you. It's for the world, it's for the universe. And your labor and your pain comes in you wrestling with and surrendering to that truth. But you can't wrestle with it anymore. All this, my friends, is the labor of love. It is the labor of love. And so we have to remember the spirit. When you talk about a labor of love, when you talk about groaning, we have to remember the spirit of 1 Corinthians 15:58. 1 Corinthians 15:50. We have to remember the spirit of that. We all have to remember the spirit of that message. Black people have to remember that. Indigenous people have to remember that. All people of color have to remember that. My gay brothers and sisters have to remember that. Trans, bisexual, trans, queer, non-binary, victims of ableism. We are all those who have been marginalized and oppressed have to remember that your labor is not in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Stand firm and let nothing move you. Fam, even through the labor, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord. And when it says the work of the Lord, I would say always give yourself fully to the work of love. Give yourself fully to the work of justice. Give yourself fully to the work of truth. Give yourself fully to it. And know that your labor is not in vain. That is the labor, fam. That is what we come through. That is the purpose. And know that your labor will always give way to your love, fam. Your labor will always give way to your love. Even the self-induced labor, even the labor that you put yourself through. Because Lord knows I put myself through pains and labors that I could have avoided, fam. I could have avoided, but you know what? God has used all of it. Every bit of it, God has used. God wasted nothing. Even if I chose and self-chose the pain, he used all of it. So fam, I say, let go and let God usher you into a new season. Because I can tell you now, that with each season, the labor does get a little lighter. It does get a little easier. Because when you surrender and let go, I'm not resisting. Don't resist that thing. Don't resist that thing. Let it go and let it come. Let it come. That's the purpose of the pain. And you know what? If people want to hold on to what you did 20, 25, 30 years ago, that's okay. Let them carry that burden. You let them carry it, but you let it go. Let that season of labor pass because it's too heavy for you to carry anymore. That's the purpose. The purpose of labor the purpose of labor that's used for transformation, right? But once that labor has served its purpose, we can move on to the next level of living, fam. We can move from glory to glory to glory to glory. And so I know I'm talking to somebody today when I say stop your laboring in the same place. Stop laboring in the same place. There's a labor that you have to go through for new birth, but there's some labor that you don't need anymore, fam. Because we're not doing heavy labor anymore. I'm not doing that anymore, fam. And when I think of that surrender, fam, when I think of that place, I think of Matthew 11:28. I think of that scripture that says, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Come unto me. All that heavy labor and being laden down with it, come to it and I will give you rest. Breathe into it, fam. Breathe into it. and get ready to birth something new, fam. Get ready to birth something new because this is the season. We're birthing something new. God is doing something new. So surrender, fam. Let it happen. Your labor is not in vain. Bring it on because it's all for your good. Amen. I say, so it is, fam. So it is. So it is, fam. Fam, I love you, and I would. I love you, fam. I love you. I love TLC. I love Rev. I love this space. And if you came here today, I hope you got exactly what you needed here today. I hope you got exactly what you needed. Pass the message on. Send it to someone else. Send it to someone you know who is laboring and who has held on for something for too long. Help them birth something new. Be a doula, be a midwife for your brother, for your sister. Do that, fam. Fam, I want us to just think about this ministry. Think about these messages. Think about what TLC has done to your life, for your life, in your life. And as we come to this time of offering, fam, I want you to think about what you can give. What you can give. What you will give. And it's not always about money. Your time, your gifts, your presence. But certainly if it is money, and certainly we need that to keep doing what we do, to keep having YouTube, to keep having these services, to keep having these events that we have, give, fam. Give from your heart. Whatever you have, give from your heart. And God will bless it and multiply in your life and in this ministry. You can give through Givelify, PayPal, CashApp. You see TLC Heals 01. You see it right there. You can go to the website. There's many ways to give. So if you want to, take advantage of it. Give to this ministry so we can keep giving to you. And that's how it flows, man. We give and receive. We are into the flow. We are into the flow of that. I want to thank you, fam, for being here. I want to thank you in advance for your gift that you're giving TLC. And I want to just say, I bless you. I love you. I honor you, fam. And I want to close out with our prayer and protection. And I want us to join together in spirit, just as we did at the beginning of this message. Let's join together and affirm together, collectively, that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. All is well, man. I love you, TLC. Go your way rejoicing. Have a wonderful holiday season, and let something new be born in you this season. It has already happened. Amen. I say, so it is. Thank you, God. Love you.